Any other questions? Yes, back here. The question is, what do I think about DCA and the future of general aviation? There is no question that I get at meetings like this that is more personal for me than that question, because I had my airplane based at DCA for 20 years. When I served in Congress, I would leave Congress and go over and get my airplane and fly back to Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And nothing would make me prouder as a pilot and as an American to take off from DCA on one of the diagonal airport runways, taxi out there, watch a big airliner take off on the north-south runway, and then I'd take off over the Anacostia and head up past the Capitol building and look down and say, you know, this is what freedom is all about. And when they shut that down, I was one of the leaders who was fighting with FAA at first, because there wasn't a TSA then, fighting with TSA, Eventually it became clear that the people who were preventing general aviation from getting back into DCA are not TSA and not the FAA, both of whom, nor is it the Airport Authority. All of them would like to get general aviation back there. It is the Secret Service. The Secret Service is totally opposed. I mean, if it was up to them, they said they would shut down the airport, National Airport, entirely. But we worked with TSA, we worked with the head of Homeland Security, and we finally got a rule, at least a rule, to allow a general aviation airplane. And the rule is ridiculous. Of course, it involves landing at a portal airport and then taking a law enforcement officer with you. And I was the first person, general aviation passenger or pilot, to come in after the new rule was announced. I came in, it was about 6 years ago, flew in from Teterboro and landed there. And they brought out the hoses, the fire hoses for the first GA airplane coming back into National Airport. I was coming in a Hawker. I'll never forget it. It was one of my great flights coming back in. And I thought that they were going to lower each, we said, get a rule in, and then hopefully each year we would lower the rule and make it easier and easier. And I think that is still the long-term hope, is that gradually the law enforcement requirement and so forth. And I think that we're hoping that this GA caucus in Washington and the Capitol will be part of the solution to that, because there are a lot of angry congressmen who who know how wonderful it was for them as congresspeople to fly in and out to that airport. But I think it's going to be a while. I think we're going to have to get to a point where the Secret Service has a little bit less total power in our system of governance in Washington. The Secret Service, as those of you who've ever dealt with TFRs and the whole, they don't want you to talk to them about any changes or complexities. Their general answer is, what part of the word no don't you understand? I mean, this is how they run the place, and we really have been pulling hair out trying to get. The saddest thing for me is not my experience. I mean, I was one of 150 airplanes that were based there. The saddest one is John Glenn's story. John Glenn is not a, unfamiliar American, and he's over 80 years old now. He's still flying on a regular basis from Washington back to Ohio. He keeps his airplane next to mine in a hangar at Dulles Airport. And both of us were forced out of National. And I knew that I didn't have any clout, but I thought that maybe John Glenn would get a little bit of respect. And he went to the FAA and TSA and Secret Service and said, isn't there something you can do for me so that my wife and I don't have to schlep all the way out of Dulles, because they live downtown in Washington. And our country will not let John Glenn fly an airplane out of National Airport. And that to me it just tells you something about this thing being out of whack. It's a disgrace. And I'm hoping and praying that before too long we'll see some balance, some simple common sense, that our country doesn't come to distrust every American, every single American. I think there are a few Americans that they ought to be able to trust to fly in and out of. We're really the only national capital in the world with a downtown airport that doesn't allow its citizens to fly into it. I mean, you can fly into downtown London, you can fly in downtown Berlin, you can fly into Toronto or whatever. I mean, all sorts of cities around the country and around the world. But somehow we're the home of the free and the land of the brave, is what they say. We might have to get that amended if we keep this up much longer.